The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.
Empire.
They want to take you out to a new ball game.
As we got started, our initial check size was 42K as an homage to Jack Robinson. And it allowed us to bring a lot of players on board and then give them a voice in what we're doing from the perspective of what companies are we evaluating.
That's Jarrett Sims and Peter Stein, who founded Turn2 Equity Partners, and they hope that great baseball minds can help shepherd the pastime into the future. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. Jarrett Sims' dad is Dave Sims, calls games for the Seattle Mariners, the latest stop during a prominent broadcasting career, so a profound love for sports was entrenched in Jarrett. Peter Stein has made his career in sports tech, venture capital, and business development. So their hope is to become a supercharged battery that baseball has needed to rebrand its most important assets, their players. Our guests this week are Jarrett Sims and Peter Stein from the newly launched venture-style holding company, Turn2 Equity Partners. Hey guys, how are you?
Graham, doing great. How are you?
Doing well.
What made you want to start a venture-style holding company in the middle of a pandemic?
Perfect timing, really. No joke. Peter and I connected pre-pandemic, but had a vision for how things can be done in a different way on both the venture side and serving entrepreneurs. And the pandemic accelerated a lot of things that were already going on prior, as far as consolidation in different markets. On the event side, MLB taking an active approach to gathering data. How MLB's changed the game up in terms of MLB and the consolidation on the minor league side. There's so many things that were going on that the pandemic just accelerated. And for business on our side, it's been fun, interesting, and business has been really good.
So, what's the initial goal here? What was the vision for starting the company?
Make baseball cool again. For us, it's really twofold. It's certainly focused on baseball, on addressing the gaps we see at the amateur market, and to properly leverage MLB players as influencers, and really to, I think, create a new approach to venture capital for the sports tech market specifically.
So when you say make it cool again, what do you mean by that? What is it missing, you think, that needs to attract the younger modern fan?
So there was a report recently that Derek Jeter was the most recognizable amongst 50 players in all sports. Derek Jeter was the only baseball player on that list, and he retired. And so I think MLB's had a problem with marketing its players, and there are guys that are got every bit as much swag as players in the NFL and NBA, and the conservative sport by nature. And, I think that somehow, that works against players in a way. But I think that marketing players in the way that the other leagues do, that's something that baseball is now coming around on. But then there's also the element of players exerting their influence in other industries and crossing over with culture, music, and other things. I think that that's something that we're starting to see a lot more of, and we're excited to be at the forefront here with some of the things that we're launching very soon.
That's really...
You have to meet them where they are. So just adding a big focus for us was Instagram and the social media platforms where that younger generation is, and to have a presence there.
What's really interesting about it, one of the things that you guys went to is Playerstribune, which was founded by Major League Baseball Advanced Media, BAM, which has been at the forefront, really, of sports technology and data analytics and all of that stuff. And yet here you are talking about how behind the times they were in the literal marketing of their stars. It's a weird chasm, that was in between how modern they thought about certain things and how behind they were in other ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. MLB Advanced Media did a really, really good job of, marketing the 30 teams and the logos for each of those and centralizing the assets and really kind of paving the way from a OTT streaming perspective in the industry and the ability to then, take that out and service NHL, MLS, and these other entities. But it just wasn't a very player-centric model. But we certainly see an opportunity to sort of repeat that to regard, especially with the player investors that we have on our platform.
So do you kind of envision this a little bit like Playerstribune? Is this more of a marketing firm? How do you kind of envision what the goal is for what you're going to do with the players?
Absolutely. So it's we're not a singular company. So we focus on not only events but media, as we've discussed a little bit, and then data and technology and consumer, CPG in that market. And we really feel like these things all working together is, really key because, you serve the entire ecosystem. When we're players, come into the action here, as Peter mentioned, as investors in our case, as we got started, our initial check size was $42K as an homage to Jackie Robinson. And it allowed us to bring a lot of players on board and then give them a voice in what we're doing from the perspective of what companies are we evaluating, doing diligence on, and investing in, acquiring and incubating. And that's something that this ecosystem and all of these different pieces of those companies in those four buckets working together provides low-cost user acquisition for each of the companies and really, creates a healthy model. And, we're really excited about the entrepreneurs that we're able to help get to the next stage as well. And some of those being players, building businesses around players. There's one player in particular played with the Yankees and the Red Sox, Darnell McDonald, who's a great guy. Consider him like family now. But Bobby Evans and I have been, providing some executive training for Darnell as we incubate, a company that he's long dreamt about and has pulled in a lot of the folks in his orbit, former teammates into that company. So we're going to be launching something with him, Q4 of this year. And that's just one example of what we're incubating. It's a company all built around mindfulness. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to give players a voice in that way and then help them, achieve some of their dreams. And certainly it fits our model, again, with events, data technology, consumer goods, and media. Media is really as an amplifier, as Peter always likes to say.
Let's talk about Player Studio for a moment, which I previously mentioned was founded by Major League Baseball Advanced Media. Why did you want to acquire that?
Yeah, so really a no-brainer for us with both the leadership and experience that Din brings, as well as some of the assets within that, which includes some certain productions that are getting underway. But for us, we see an opportunity to create a digital media platform, similar to an Overtime, but focused on this baseball market, and then to build it in a way. We have a lot of content coming out. We have a partnership with John Boy Media that we're very excited about, with a show called the GM Files that should be really in the next couple of weeks coming to life. But going to do so in a cost-effective way, which Dan is able to bring to the table, and then to be able to build an audience that's growing. We already have over 1 million followers on Instagram, closer to 5 now. And to be able to just reach the audience in a very organic way, as Jarrett said earlier, to drive this low-cost user acquisition for the rest of the portfolio. Then with the goal in 2021 to go for a much bigger platform OTT type of play.
And Bram, we're stacking assets right now, and in this one, as much as it was about this slate of 10 shows that we have, and getting that done at a tip-top level, that's what Din helps us do. But it's really about the person, and Din now is a pillar for us on the media side, in the way we have, Jim Buquette and Bobby Evans as pillars on the events and amateur and pro market. And, we're really pumped about, Jimmy Lee Solomon joining us as well in that regard. His Rolodex and history as an executive is, very, very much unmatched almost. So say, with, other pillars, Peter and I heading up, things from a board perspective, again, Player Studios is about getting this slate of shows done, and Peter, mentioned the one piece of content we're really pumped about there with the GM files. But Din's brought something to us that allows us to make sure that for entrepreneurs and the companies in our portfolio, we're able to execute at a really high level, and he's been a joy to work with.
Let me go back to the incubator part of this. The NFLPA has their own incubator style program that they work with some of their players, and they invite in startups to pitch them to invest or try to help players invest in their own companies. The NBA obviously has been very forward thinking. A lot of their players have been involved in a lot of different sectors of tech and investment. Was there a void in baseball? Were they behind with that? Is that part of the void that you sought to kind of close up?
I don't know if there's a void, but I think that, the Players Association was busy at making sure that they could provide resources to players in a way that brought the alumni in to various ventures and deploying capital. We have some great relationships with folks there. We just thought that with our player relationships, we saw kind of a different way to do things and bridge a gap between entrepreneurs, allow players to exert influence, but then also take their careers, post-playing career, to the next level in terms of getting them involved in the companies, kind of in the way I mentioned about Darnell earlier. We're going to be doing a few other things in that regard. So baseball sometimes is a few years behind, but in this case, there are a lot of good folks in the space who are hard at work. In a similar fashion, but I feel like we've differentiated ourselves based on, the unique team that we've built. And, our thesis being really around all of the companies in the portfolio coming back to data and technology at the heart of it, with again, media amplifying each of these pieces.
Peter, what's your background?
Yeah, so my background began sort of broad sports industry experience, marketing with the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn Nets, before shifting to a very data focus. Back in the day, Bloomberg Sports had a division, so under Bloomberg, and then on to a company called Repucom, which was eventually acquired by Nielsen Sports. So I got this broad sports industry experience before taking the jump into venture capital and working at a VC firm in New York called Launch Capital, focusing on early stage tech investing in really kind of seed to Series A, and got my hands dirty both within the portfolio at large, and then eventually joining a portfolio company called Block 6 Analytics, which is sort of a measures value of digital media assets, and with David Falk actually the chairman of the board. So I got good experience kind of on both sides of the table, as they say, and then launched my firm, Sport Tech Ventures, about 2.5 years ago, which is now really just been rolled into Turn2 at large.
And Jarrett, your father is one of the really famous broadcasters in baseball and in sports for that matter, Dave Sims. What's your background?
So I grew up in the game in Madison Square Garden. My dad was doing a show called Sports Night with Dave Sims back in the 80s. So, I was there, with, I think it was that song from Dirty Dancing they would play at the end of Knicks games. I still have that firmly implanted in my head when I would go down to the court to meet my dad. But, whether it was there or in the Eagles locker room, my dad ended up doing his voice of the Big East, and obviously now it's the voice of the Seattle Mariners. Did NFL for, a decade plus. And so I've got to see, how athletes, in baseball in particular, there's an underserved nature for players, and this crossover effect. I was very excited about being able to change the game with Peter. And we came together when I was the founder and CEO of a VR training company, Monsterful, And Peter was an investor at the time. Formed a bond, and in terms of changing how VC works, and then also making sure that I learned this, that you need to have the right partners as an entrepreneur to succeed. And we really feel like the team that we've built provides that. Two portfolio companies we're investing in, and the entrepreneurs that run them. And responsible, I was the head of product for a company called Hyper, which was just recently acquired. It's the largest search engine and database for influencers. And so building big data platforms, apps, websites. That was my background before I had an epiphany there at Safeco Field on the pitcher's mound, just having a catch with my dad and brother, that I needed to do something that combined my love of sports with my background in technology.
He couldn't. You got the pipes. He couldn't convince you to go the broadcasting route. You're not into that one?
Bram, I know you went to American University.
Yeah.
I saw you with some, kind of a between two ferns setup on your Twitter. Just looking at that, I went to GW. So back in the day, I called some games for GW. My first broadcast, my dad gave me. He keeps it real. My dad, you got to give him that. He gave me a C+. So I think that I don't know if that dissuaded me and had me become an entrepreneur. But I had considered it at one time.
Well, I mean, here's the deal with that. Us broadcasters, we kind of keep everybody at bay because we know everybody wants our job. So even our own children, we tell them, that was okay, kid. That was all right.
The Albert family didn't get that message, though.
No, they didn't. They did not. The one name that really stands out to me is I'm a huge Nationals fan, and of course, Dusty Baker was the manager here for a few years. He's one of the founding partners there too. And I don't know him well, but I think of him as old school as it gets, and here he is on this like forward-thinking venture capital firm. What brought Dusty to you guys?
Dusty is literally the coolest dude I've ever met in my life. I mean, the guy's credited with inventing the high five, but he's got soul and passion, grit, and just as a warm person and really smart. He's introduced a lot of folks to us, from the perspective of those we're working with, those that we may invest in. But Dusty was actually one of the first people that I called when Peter and I decided to formalize our partnership, just knowing how Dusty's actually, again, very forward thinking. He's an entrepreneur. He's the head of an energy company and the head of the founder of a winery. I think he said to me, every time he lost a job, he started a new company.
Huh.
And so I don't know if that timeline matches up with him leaving the Nationals, but our coming together was really just a function of, I couldn't think of anybody better to have as a partner after Peter and I formed our partnership. And it's been fun to work with him, and he's very engaged. It's exciting to see him in a uniform with the Astros, and we're pulling for him every game now.
And the respect that he garners from his former players, guys like Darnell McDonald, who are part of our platform. It's just really special to see the way that you can tell that Dusty helped really shape their lives. And we cannot think of a better person to have as a founding partner.
Very cool. Jarrett Sims and Peter Stein from Turn2 Equity Partners. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Bram.
On the next Future Sport podcast.
I think there are a few challenges. People with intellectual disabilities do often have more physical challenges that make them a little bit more vulnerable to the virus that we have right now. And so that, of course, makes it more difficult. I think the challenge in school of not being able to interact with your fellow classmates, not being able to interact with your teacher as much, really creates a new challenge for them to overcome. And certainly in healthcare, from the standpoint of being able to communicate with your doctor.
That's Kelly Seeley, Chief Marketing Officer with the Special Olympics, where a pandemic has dampened her ability to spread the mission of awareness and equality. That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3 Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3 Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.